إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. Then let us continue today with the point actually which we still haven't completed, which was the issue pertaining to al-mawazana, i.e. the claim of those misguided ones who say that when you refute a person due to his errors and he is from the mukhalifeen of Ahlul Sunnah, meaning that he is from the opposers of Ahlul Sunnah, then you cannot refute him, except that you must be just as they claim and praise him for the good that he does and mention also his criticisms. So they say that this is from justice and this is from adal. This is from adal, meaning from being just with respect to even the one who opposes you. So this is a principle that they've set up from the Hizbiyyin and from the Harakiyyin, from the people of partisanship, from the people of political agitation, from those who seek authority, from those who claim that they are the du'at to tajmi', the callers to gathering the people under a single banner. They claim that they are giving strength to the ummah. So they say, yes, you can criticize if you must. But if you criticize, then also praise the one that you are criticizing, because surely he must have good deeds. So Shaykh al-Fawzān, حفظه الله ta'ala, he said, and I'll just mention the point from last week, it's only a sentence, and that will lead us on to today's part of this answer. He said that if the error of the one is in the matters of Aqīdah, meaning in the matters of the usul or the fundamentals of the religion, then it is not allowed for us to praise the misguided ones, those who are the opposers of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, whether it be from the Mu'tazila, the Jahmiyyah, the Zanadiqa, the heretics, the Malāḥida, those who have apostated, and likewise from those who are the people of doubts and deviations of this era, and how numerous they are. So here he mentions that it is not permissible to praise them or to mention anything good about them. And these influences, as we stated last week, meaning the influences of the Mu'tazila, the Jahmiyyah, the Khawārij, the Rāfidah, the Qadariyah, the Murji'ah, all of those influences that were present and their da'wat that were present in the time of the early Salaf. And the early Salaf of this ummah and their scholars had to deal with them and refute them and oppose them and write against them and wage war against Ahlul Bid'ah. Those influences are present today. Those deviations and innovations are still present today. Whether it be the Asha'ira, the Kullābiyyah, those who are the followers of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari before his tawbah and before his tarāju', before he returned to the truth and repented, and he died in 324 after the Hijrah. Or whether it be the followers of Ibn Kullāb, whom Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal refuted due to his deviation in the Aqīdah. Or whether it be the influences of the Lafdhiyya and the Mufawwidah, that all of those sects, even though they are sects of old, they are still present today. in one form or another. They may come under different titles and names, but those organizations and sects and those inclinations and deviations, they are still present today, albeit under different titles, whether they call themselves Islamic reformers, or whether they call themselves modernists, whether they call themselves the enlightened ones, whether they call themselves liberals, whether they call themselves philosophers, or modern thinkers, or writers, or influencers. Within all of these titles and names that they use just to beautify their call, they say that we are Islamic philosophers, we are Islamic thinkers, we are modernists, we are progressives. They still hold the ideas underlying the ideas of the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila and the Khawārij. And you'll find them amongst the ranks of Ikhwan al-Muslimin. You'll find them in organizations such as al-Aqīdah, or Hizb al-Tahrir, or the various sects of Tasawwuf and Sufiyyah, and the philosophers, and the Asraniyun, the Aqlaniyun, who call themselves intellectuals, that we are modern day intellectuals, we are revivers and reformers. Whether they follow the ideas of Jamaluddin al-Afghani, or Muhammad Abdu, or Rashid Rida, or Hassan al-Banna, or Sayyid Quṭb. These ideas are still present today. And this is why when you see that the scholars, they are teaching the books of old, and they keep mentioning the ideas of the Lafdhiyya, the ideas of the Jahmiyyah, the ideas of the Mu'tazila and the Khawārij and the Ibadiyya, or the teachings, the false teachings of the Sufi of old, whether it be the teachings of al-Junayd, al-Hallaj, Ibn Arabi and other than them, that when you hear our scholars mentioning these names and these ideas of those individuals, it's because they still remain today. The deniers of the names and attributes are present today. The distorters of the names and attributes of Allah are present today. The deniers of the punishment of the grave are present today. The deniers of the belief in the appearance and the unleashing of al-Ya'juj wal-Ma'juj, al-Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, they are present today. Whether they come under the garbs of Yasir Qadi or Umar Sulaiman, or the likes of Tahir Wyatt, whatever these Western speakers and so-called intellectuals, that you find them today present, and they are coming with the same ideas as the Mu'tazila of old, and Ahlul Tasawwuf of old, and the Khawārij of old. They are present amongst our ranks, whether it be their teachers or the heads and the ideologues of these movements of our times, the likes of Muhammad Qutb, and before him his elder brother Sayyid Quṭb, or whether it be the likes of Safar al-Hawali or Salman al-Awda. These people are present and writing, and their ideas are prevalent and widespread in one form or another. They are public speakers and they are writers, they have blogs, they have websites where they are spreading these ideas that were present amongst the philosophers of old and amongst Ahlul Kalam and the Mutakallimin, the people of speculative theology and theological rhetoric and falsafa and sophistry and logic. They are present today. This is why Shaykh al-Fawzān and Shaykh Ibn Baz and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymīn and Shaykh Muqbil and Shaykh Rabī and Shaykh Abdul-Muhsin and the likes of Ahmed al-Najmi and Zayd al-Madkhali in our era were still teaching the books of old, such as Lu'matul I'tiqād and al-Aqīdah al-Wasitiyyah and Fatwa al-Hamawiyyah. Why are they teaching those books of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qudama? Why are they teaching the books of Ahmad ibn Hanbal Usul al-Sunnah and al-Muzani al-Sunnah? Why are those scholars still teaching those books? And the books al-Sharia of Imam al-Ajuri and al-Ibana of Ibn Battah. They are teaching those books because those ideas that they have come through the generations and they are still prevalent and present today. So when they are refuted, they are not to be praised. They are not to be praised. Shaykh al-Fawzān, حفظه ta'ala, in his answer, he continued. He said, so the origin of this misconception and doubt, what misconception and doubt? That you must praise the one that you are refuting. So the origin of this misconception and doubt of making a balance between a person's good and evil deeds, his good actions and his evil deeds, when criticizing him for his errors, was asserted, Shaykh al-Fawzān said, he was asserted by one of the youth who wrote a treatise, a risala, mentioning it. So this risala that he wrote, or this treatise that he wrote, brought joy to some of the youth. And I came across this treatise wherein the author claims that al-mawazana, counterbalancing, is a must when criticizing the mukhalif. That it is a must. Then he said, Shaykh al-Fawzān, he continues, and then I came across the treatise of Shaykh Rabī bin Hadi al-Madkhali, wherein he refutes the claims of the author who asserted that al-mawazana is a must. And that refutation of Shaykh Rabī was a comprehensive refutation. And Shaykh Rabī clarified the errors and the falsehood that has been circulated and spread. And he explained the madhab of the Salaf in refuting, that they would refute the astray, misguided people, and they would not praise them. Because if they praise them, it would be a form of contradiction. I.e., on one side you are refuting them, and on the other hand, you are praising them. And this is a contradiction. Then in explanation of this, as I've mentioned, and I'll cover with some examples inshallah, as Shaykh Jamal al-Harithi has mentioned, and I'll add something in addition to that, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. So these sects, and our mention of them, is because they are present and active in spreading falsehood, as we mentioned in the last lesson. As an example, let us take Sayyid Quṭb, who is one of the chief ideologues, and he is the murshid, or the guide for Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood that was founded in the 1920s in Egypt. The founder, al-Hasan al-Banna. And Sayyid Quṭb, who was executed in 1966 by the Egyptian government. This Sayyid Quṭb, that he gathered nearly every single sect of deviation in his writings and teachings. He had with him the ideas of the Khawārij, the Mu'tazila, the Sufiyya, the people of logic and falsafa. This Sayyid Quṭb, that he gathered between all of the sects, but the sect that he is known for propounding their ideas and their ideologies are the Khawārij and the Mu'tazila. However, in much of that which he has said, he has also agreed with the ideas of the Jahmiyyah and Ahlul Tasawwuf, the Sufiyya, and the extreme of the Sufiyya. So let us take an example of Sayyid Quṭb in his claim that the Quran is created. So in his tafsir, so-called, of the Quran, known as Dhilal al-Quran, Sayyid Quṭb states in volume 4, 2328, he said, the Quran is manifest part of the universe, or part of the kawn, the existence, just like the earth and the heavens. That's his statement regarding the Quran. This, my brothers and sisters, is the same as the saying of the Jahmiyyah. The Quran is not like the heavens and the earth. Why? Because the heavens and the earth are created, whereas the Quran is not created, because the Quran is kalamullah, غير مخلوق. That is the Aqīdah of Ahlul Sunnah. The Aqīdah of the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila is that the Quran is no different to the heavens and the earth. It is a creation. So he said that the Quran is manifest, part of the universe, part of the existence, just like the earth and the heavens, just like the ard and the samawat. That is a statement of the Jahmiyyah. He also states regarding the ayat in the book of Allah that they are musical rhymes and musical expressions, as he claims in his speech regarding Surah Al-Shams, Al-Fajr, Al-Ghashiyah, Al-Tariq, Al-Qiyamah. And this is just gives you an idea of what he thinks about the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that these are musical expressions. Wallahu al-musta'an. Likewise, in his tafsir of Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Surah Al-Ikhlas, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Messenger of Allah, Qul, say, He is Allah al-Ahad, that He is Allah, the One. Sayyid Quṭb, in his explanation, he said that this ayah, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, say, He is Allah, the One, that this is the unity of existence. Ahadiyatul wujud, meaning wahdatul wujud. That this is the oneness or the unity of existence. Then he said, so there is not a reality except for His reality, meaning Allah. And there is no true existence except for His existence. So everything else that exists stems from that one true existence. This is what he says in في ظلال القرآن, volume 6, 4002. This is wahdatul wujud, meaning that the whole of existence, that the whole of existence is one and it is Allah, meaning that everything is Allah. This is kufr, my brothers and sisters. This is the denial of the ulu of Allah. This is the denial that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ba'in min khalqihi, that Allah is separate and distinct from His creation, above the seven heavens. Allah created the creation, He is not a part of His creation. Allah created the heavens and the earth and what is within them and what is between them, but He subhanahu wa ta'ala is not the heavens and the earth, and He is not His creation. He is distinct and separate from His creation, ba'in min khalqihi, as the Salaf used to have said in their books of Aqīdah, that He is distinct and separate from His creation. Allah did not create His creation and then enter into it. The creation is not Allah. You are not Allah. As al-Hallaj was present in the 3rd century, in the same time, actually the same era as Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. That this al-Hallaj, that he said that he has annihilated himself with Allah. And he has become one with Allah, such that he said, Ana al-Haq, that I am the truth, meaning that I am God, for which he was executed. So the belief of this Sayyid Quṭb is that the existence is one, that Allah is one with His creation, that there is nothing except for the wujud, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wahdatul wujud, which the Salaf of this ummah and the scholars of later times agreed that the one who holds the belief in the oneness and the unity of existence, then that is a statement of kufr. That if a person was to utter it, knowing its intent, knowing what it means, then that person has exited the fold of Islam. So this is Sayyid Quṭb with regard to the belief in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that everything is Allah, wahdatul wujud. Ibn Uthaymīn rahimahullah ta'ala stated, and he is a Salafi scholar and Imam of Ahlus Sunnah, Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymīn. He said that I read the tafsir of Sayyid Quṭb, Dhilal al-Quran, of Surah al-Ikhlas, and he has spoken huge words in opposition to Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, wherein he speaks with wahdatul wujud, i.e. the unity of existence, i.e. that everything is Allah. Shaykh al-Albānī rahimahullah ta'ala said that Sayyid Quṭb has repeated the speech of the Sufis, and it cannot be understood except that he is speaking with wahdatul wujud, that everything in existence is Allah. So this is the statement of Ahlus Sunnah, and this is the statement of Sayyid Quṭb. So the question is that when the people say, oh, you are speaking about the sects of old and they don't exist, here is Sayyid Quṭb propounding. Not just Sayyid Quṭb, those who follow him, many of those who follow him. And likewise, nearly all of the Sufi sects of today, they will deny the ulu of Allah, the highness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here Shaykh Rabī, Shaykh al-Albānī and Shaykh ibn Uthaymīn. Then Shaykh al-Albānī rahimahullah ta'ala wrote with his own hand, this is Shaykh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albānī, the muhaddith and imam and mujaddid of this era, or one of them. Shaykh al-Albānī rahimahullah wrote with his own hand at the beginning of Shaykh Rabī's book, Al-Awāsim Mimma fi Kutub Sayyid Quṭb min al-Qawāsim, on page 3, book published in 1421. Shaykh al-Albānī said that everything that you have refuted Sayyid Quṭb for, it is true and it is correct. And it is clear to every Muslim who has read about Islamic culture and heritage that Sayyid Quṭb did not know about Islam, not in its foundations, in its usul, nor in its branches, in its furu'. So may Allah reward you with the best of reward, O brother Rabī', meaning Shaykh Rabī bin Hadi al-Madkhali, for standing up for this obligation in clarifying and uncovering his ignorance and deviation from Islam. This is Shaykh al-Albānī praising the efforts of Shaykh Rabī' in refuting Sayyid Quṭb in his usul and in his furu', in his fundamentals, in his Aqīdah, and in the branches of the religion. So this is what the scholars have to say about Sayyid Quṭb. And this is the praise of the scholars for Shaykh Rabī' in exposing the deviations. And likewise what we mentioned from Shaykh al-Fawzān, حفظه ta'ala. When Shaykh al-Fawzān, he said, ووقفت على رسالة للشيخ ربيع بن هادي المدخلي ورد فيها على هذه الرسالة التي يزعم صاحبها لزوم الموازنة ردا وافيا. That he said, this is Shaykh al-Fawzān in the same answer, that I came across the risala or the treatise of Shaykh Rabī' bin Hadi al-Madkhali. Which treatise? Shaykh Rabī' wrote a refutation of these people who call to mawazana. And that is the book of Shaykh Rabī', Manhaj Ahlu Sunnati wal Jama'ah fi Naqd al-Kutub wal Rijal wal Tawa'if. That the book of Shaykh Rabī', the methodology of Ahlu Sunnati wal Jama'ah in criticism of books and men and sects. So Shaykh Rabī' has that book in which he clarifies how Ahlul Bid'ah and how the Mukhalifeen and how the people of deviation are to be refuted, how their books are to be refuted, how their personalities are to be refuted, and how the sects are to be refuted. So Shaykh So Shaykh al-Fawzān mentioned that there was a youth who wrote a risala. He's talking about one of the harakiyin, one of the people of the movements, modern day movements, who said that, okay, if you want to refute the one who you oppose, then at least mention good, because it's wajib to be just. So Shaykh al-Fawzān said that when I read that and I came across that, then I came across the book of Shaykh Rabī. And Shaykh Rabī, in his treatise, Manhaj Ahl Sunnati wal Jamā'ah fi Naqd al-Kutub wal Rijal wal Tawā'if, that when I came across that book, then I found Shaykh Rabī's refutation of them to be a comprehensive refutation. Shaykh Rabī clarified the errors and the falsehood that has been circulated regarding al-mawazana. This is Shaykh Rabī in the view of the scholars such as Shaykh al-Fawzān and Shaykh ibn Uthaymīn and Shaykh al-Albānī, such that Shaykh al-Albānī, that he handwrote his praise of Shaykh Rabī in his refutation of Sayyid Quṭb, and then the people say, oh, old Shaykh Rabī does his refute, and the scholars aren't with him. Shaykh Rabī is an imam that has been praised by the ai of his era and our era, walillahi alhamd. So going back to that which we mentioned about Sayyid Quṭb, then Sayyid Quṭb, as we said, then he is the upholder of the madhahib of misguidance that appeared in the early part of Islam. Even Sayyid Quṭb has not left the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. So you find Sayyid Quṭb criticizing, for example, the likes of Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu, criticizing him and other than him, the likes of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, and even Uthman bin Affan, accusing some of them of being fraudulent, accusing Uthman of his khilafah being a khilafah that is null and void and not to be counted, accusing the likes of Abu Musa or the likes of Muawiyah and the likes of Amr ibn al-As of ghish, of trickery and deception. Even the prophets of Allah were not safe from Sayyid Quṭb. And then they say that, why are you talking about these sects of old when they have disappeared? Their ideas have not disappeared. The ideas of the Mu'tazila are present today. The likes of Umar Sulaiman and the likes of Yasir Qadi, Mu'tazila of this era, Khawārij, with the ideas of the Khawārij, who come in the garbs of liberalism. And what they want to do is liberate you from the Sunnah, liberate you from the Aqīdah of the Quran and the Hadith of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that you may remove yourself from that which is in the Quran and Sunnah. That's why you find them praising some of the modernists and even the kuffar, and saying that we will support LGBT and their right to practice what they are upon. And they will deny the appearance of Gog and Magog at the end of time, as Yasir Qadi did. He said, believe what you want to believe. As for me, then there's no way that I'm going to believe. I said, we see satellites and we see how you can travel the whole of the earth, and no one has found them yet. He said, you want to believe, you believe. As for me, and then he starts laughing. These are these people. So they want to, and so these ideas of the Mu'tazila and the philosophers of old and the mutakallimin of old are present today in our times. Let us take another example. Muhammad Qutb, he is the younger brother of Sayyid Quṭb. Sayyid Quṭb was executed in 1966 for inciting revolution and rebellion against the oppressive rulers of Egypt. So they imprisoned him and eventually they executed him. He had a younger brother, Muhammad Qutb, who was imprisoned in Egypt, in Cairo. Then through the intercession of the rulers of Saudi Arabia, who they were making takfir of, by the way, but the Saudis, that they did not want these people to be executed and be languishing in prisons in Egypt. So they said, let us intercede. They said to the Egyptian government, at the head of them at that time was Jamal Abdel Nasser, and they said, release these people from prison, we'll take them into Saudi. because we can't tolerate that Muslims are being imprisoned and they are being persecuted. So some of in later times, after the rise of al-Qaeda in the late 1990s and early 2000s, then the Saudi regime began to see that they were naive, that there was some naivety in inviting these people, and they admitted, like Amir Naif, he admitted that we had good hearts, so we wanted khair for them. We did it, what we did for them was through ikhlas and wanting khair for them. So we opened our doors and we allowed them into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and they started teaching in our institutions, in colleges, universities and schools. And they were having secret societies. And they started cultivating our youth and our young ones upon the ideas of Sayyid Quṭb and takfir and rebellion and so on. And from those individuals that was welcomed into Saudi Arabia was Muhammad Qutb, who started writing, and his books are translated into dozens of languages, from English to Urdu to Hindi to Bengali, French, German. The books of Qutb and Muhammad Qutb have been translated. And he was in Saudi Arabia whilst they had given him shelter, and he was exiled there, and they gave him a job, and he taught in their universities, and yet he was making takfir of them and calling for revolution against them. So Muhammad Qutb, he said in a work of his that is called Our Current State, on page 29, واقعنا al-mu'asir. He said, the affair requires us to call the people anew to Islam. So this is what he's saying in this work, that the affair has become so grievous that it requires us to call the people anew to Islam. And this is not because they refuse to say with their mouths, La ilaha illallah, not for that reason. Not because they refuse to say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, as they refused to say in the first era of strangeness. Rather, this time, they refuse the prime meaning and requirement of La ilaha illallah, and that is to judge by the Sharia of Allah. End of his quote. So look how here he has made the takfir of the Muslims in general. He has judged that they have rejected the Sharia of Allah, so we must call them back. They have rejected the Sharia of Allah, and he has compared them to the Jahmiyyah before the coming of Islam. In this statement of his, he offers no detail, no exceptions to the rule. So as far as he's concerned, that we must call the ummah anew to La ilaha illallah. Not because they are refusing to say, they are saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, but because they refuse the prime requirement of La ilaha illallah. They have refused, meaning the whole of the ummah has refused the prime requirement of La ilaha illallah, and that is to judge by the Sharia of Allah. Actually, the prime requirement of La ilaha illallah is that you worship Allah and that you reject the worship of everything besides Allah. La ma'buda bihaqqin illallah. That is the meaning of La ilaha illallah, that there is no deity worthy of worship except for Allah. In truth, except for Allah. As far as he's concerned, the prime meaning of La ilaha illallah is to judge by that which Allah has revealed. So they believe that that is the prime meaning. And since the people, as far as they're concerned, have not adopted this prime meaning, all of them are kuffar, so let us call them back again to La ilaha illallah. So this time, not like the times of Jahiliyyah, where they refuse to say La ilaha illallah, because now they're saying La ilaha illallah, but they're refusing. And they have rejected the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal-iyadhu billah. So as far as he's concerned, there is no one, and there are no people who judge by the Sharia of Allah anymore. And none left who takes the book and the Sunnah as their constitution. And there are many like Muhammad Qutb. He's dead now. He died a few years ago. And there are many like him. May Allah give him what he deserves, and likewise his brother. And there is none left, as far as they are concerned, who take the book and the Sunnah as their dustur, as their constitution. And there are many like Muhammad Qutb and Sayyid Quṭb who hold that there is no Muslim country and no Muslim state present in the world today. And they refuse to affirm the presence of the people of Hadith, Ahlul Hadith, those upon the madhab of the Salaf, Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. They refuse to accept that they are present in the world today, who are upon correct Tawheed and correct Aqīdah. But in reality, we are present. Barakallahu feekum. People of Hadith are present. Ahlul Sunnah are present. Ahlul Tawheed are present. Ahlul Aqidatul Sahihah are present. The people of correct Aqīdah. Better Aqīdah than these two brothers, the two Qutb brothers. Our Aqīdah is better than their Aqīdah. Yet they have the audacity to make takfir of us and the ummah as a whole. And they say that this is ummah ghaiba. This is a non-existent ummah. And their jahiliyyah is worse than the jahiliyyatul ula. And they make takfir. They say there is no land of Islam in the world today. Yet our Aqīdah is better than them. They are the ones who are calling to the Aqīdah of Jahm bin Safwan, believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere and that the Quran is created. They are the ones who are coming with this Aqīdah of kufr. Yet they have the audacity to say that the ummah is not Muslimah. That now we have to call them to La ilaha illallah. You don't even know the meaning of La ilaha illallah. And yet you accuse the ummah of being upon kufr. My brothers and sisters, look at the people of Sunnah and Tawheed in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They are no people of Sunnah and Aqīdah. You're living in Saudi. He lived in Saudi Arabia, Muhammad Qutb, for over 30 years. Well, more than 30 years. He got there in 71 or 72. 1971 or 72, and he died in the mid-2000s. How many years he lived there? He doesn't see people of Tawheed there. He doesn't see people of Sunnah there. He believes that all of them and all of these universities that they gave him a job in, that all of them are upon what? Upon Jahiliyyah. So look at the people of Sunnah and Tawheed in the Jaziratul Arab, in the Khalij, in the Gulf countries, even in the Indian subcontinent. They are people of Sunnah and Salafiyah and Hadith. In India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. In Afghanistan, there are people of Sunnah everywhere. In North Africa. Even in Britain, we have people of Sunnah and Tawheed. And these people of Sunnah and Tawheed and Salafiyah are better than the two Qutb brothers, Muhammad and Sayyid. They are the ones who set the ummah and the hearts of the ummah on fire. Starting this rejuvenation, this renewal of takfir and the ideas of the Khawārij and the Mu'tazila. Then there is another one who is the student of Muhammad Qutb, a Saudi, Safar al-Hawali, studied in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in the universities of the kingdom. He has a doctorate, he is a doctor, PhD from al-Qura in Mecca. Individuals like this, they used to go and visit Shaykh Ibn Baz and sit with him whilst concealing their bid'ah and their teacher Muhammad Qutb and his ideas. Up until in the mid-90s, they started writing and teaching. The likes of Safar al-Hawali, Salman al-Awda, which he led eventually to Shaykh bin Baz issuing a fatwa after praising them initially. He used to praise Safar al-Hawali. Safar al-Hawali has a book in refutation of the Asha'ira. But then Yasir Qadi has a master's in clarification of the Aqīdah of the Jahmiyyah from Medina University. Where did these certificates get them? This is a proof against them Just like Wasil bin Ata, who used to sit in the circles of the great Imam and the Tabi'i, Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, who died in the year 110. He used to sit in his durus. And likewise, Ya'qub bin Shayba, and al-Karabisi and al-Muhasibi used to sit with Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He didn't benefit them. Likewise, this Safar al-Hawali. Safar al-Hawali, he gives a lecture. In his hand is a flyer of a hotel from one of the Gulf countries. So he sits in a masjid and in his hand is a flyer. He starts waving the flyer around in the masjid in his dars. What's the dars? Sharh al-Aqīdah al-Tahawiyyah of Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi, rahimahullah. So, during this lecture, he says, I have this flyer. He said, this flyer is from a hotel. He said, in this hotel, and you can see clearly what it states on this flyer, that they serve alcoholic drinks in this hotel. This is clearly calling the people to drink khamar, he said, and to nakedness, and to intermingling between the sexes, and dancing alongside each other whilst drinking khamar. And then he says, and we seek refuge with Allah from this kufr. Tape 2 in his Sharh of Aqīdah Tahawiyyah 272. So I say to you, my brothers, our Aqīdah says, does our Aqīdah say that if you serve alcohol and you drink khamar and you invite others to drink khamar and you allow intermingling of the sexes so that they dance with each other whilst they are drinking, is this kufr? Is this kufr that takes you outside of Islam? This doctor of Aqīdah says that it is kufr. The ones who are sitting say, no, the Shaykh must be right. He has a PhD from al-Qura. He must be right. Why did he say that what those people are doing is kufr? It must be kufr. This is what he says. This Safar al-Hawali. So he regards the one who calls openly to his sin and he invites others to drink and others to fornicate and others to dance. He regards this to be kufr. He said, why? Because they're calling the people. They're belittling sin. This is mockery of the deen of Allah. So they are kuffar. This same Safar al-Hawali wrote a book, ظاهرات الإرجاء في فكر الإسلامي. The appearance of irja in Islamic thought. This book is a refutation of Shaykh al-Albānī. And he compares Shaykh al-Albānī, he says the Aqīdah of Shaykh al-Albānī is worse than the Aqīdah of Jahm bin Safwan. This takfiri, Shaykh al-Albānī said, my Aqīdah is that. He said, Shaykh al-Albānī in response, he said, I used to say about Jamā'at al-Tabligh. He said, 30 years ago, this is in the mid-90s, Shaykh al-Albānī said that. He said, 30 years ago, I used to say that Jamā'at al-Tabligh are the Sufiya as-Sariya, are the Sufis of this age. He said, today I say that these Sururiya, Qutbiyyah, Safar al-Hawali and his likes, Salman al-Awda, that they are the Kharijiyya as-Sariya, that they are the Khawārij of the age. So the Khawārij and the Mu'tazila, their ideas and ideologues are still alive, my brothers and sisters, being spread through these innovators. Those ideas of old that you thought, actually that was in the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That was in the time of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Surely there aren't people today declaring other people to be kuffar because of major sins, no matter how many major sins. Muslim societies, my brothers and sisters, do not deem alcohol and nakedness and riba to be halal. You don't find Muslims saying that fornication is halal. Allah, Allah says it's haram for I make it halal. No Muslim says that. When a Muslim fornicates, waliyadu billah, he knows he's doing wrong. When he gambles, he knows he's doing wrong. Even those Muslims that call to it, and they make flyers and they say, come and drink in our pub, and they are Muslims. Even they know that Allah did not make it halal. They're making money. And they're following their desires. Muslim societies do not deem alcohol and nakedness and riba to be halal, such that Safar al-Hawali falsely can claim in a book, as he claims in a work of his that has been printed in several countries and languages. And the book, even in Urdu, they published the book. And in Urdu, in Pakistan, they gave it the title Kashf al-Ghumma an Ulama al-Ummah, lifting the distress from the ulama of the Ummah. In America, they printed it under the title Wa'ad Kissinger, the promise of Kissinger. In the Gulf countries, they titled it Haqa'iq Hawl Ahdath al-Khalij, facts surrounding the Gulf crisis. They printed this book. What does he say in this book? Just to let you know, just in case you still think that actually these ideas are old, why are we talking about them today? These books are published in America, in Pakistan, in Britain, you'll find it. Allahu alam, if you go to Amazon, you'll probably find the book. Don't get it though. It's called Kissinger's Promise. He said, Kufr. This is Safar al-Hawali. Kufr. You know where he lived? Not far from Shaykh Rabī. When Shaykh Rabī was in Mecca, he used to live not far from him in his area. This is Safar al-Hawali. Safar al-Hawali said, Kufr and heresy and apostasy has appeared and become manifest in our newspapers. What has become manifest? Kufr, heresy, apostasy in our newspapers. He'll tell you why in a minute. He said, evil has spread in our circles, and we are called to fornication. We are called to fornication on our radios and television sets. And we have made riba lawful. So he mentions these sins. What does he preface it with? By saying kufr, heresy and apostasy. We are being called to fornication. So if someone calls you to fornication, he's a kafir, an apostate, a hypocrite. Is that what he is? So if you call to fornication, you're an apostate and you're a kafir. We are called to fornication on our radios and TVs, and we have made riba lawful. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ يَا سَفَرْ. How is it reached you that we have made riba, that the Muslims have made riba permissible? Just because you see adverts for banks, that means that the Muslims have made riba permissible? So a Muslim sells wine in his shop, therefore he has made wine permissible. He has made khamr permissible. So now we can make takfir upon every supermarket where wine is sold in Britain. Every supermarket or newsagent where they are selling lottery tickets. All of those Muslims are kuffar now because they are inviting the people to gamble. Because this is what he said at the beginning, kufr and heresy and apostasy have appeared. Why? Because they are calling to these sins and they make riba lawful. How do you know they made riba lawful? So this Safar al-Hawali sees that these sins are apostasy and kufr. Just by them calling to it, they have made it halal. So if I now make a leaflet, waliyadu billah, may Allah protect us from sin, but if a person makes a leaflet and he says that all of the whiskey and wine in my shop, today they are 50% off. That Muslim has now made wine lawful because he's telling the people to come and buy his whiskey and wine. That's what kufr akbar. This is the Khawārij making takfir upon the kabā'ir. If a person commits a major sin, it was the Khawārij that said that such a person is a kafir. And it was the Mu'tazila who said, okay, We won't say he's a kafir, but he's not a Muslim either. He is manzila bayna manzilatayn. But if he dies, Allah will not forgive him. He will burn in the hellfire forever. These are the Khawārij and the Mu'tazila. This man and his followers till this day, they say, Safar al-Hawali used to be a student of bin Baz. Yes, Wasil bin Ata was a student of Al-Hasan al-Basri. Abdul-Rahman ibn Miljim was present in the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. And it is said that Umar used to send him or sent him amongst the people to teach the Quran. How does that aid them? That at one time you did something good. This Abdul-Rahman ibn Miljim who killed Ali radiyallahu anhu, this Wasil bin Ata, alongside Amr bin Ubayd, destroyed the Ummah. They came before Jahm bin Safwan and Ja'd ibn Dirham. They were in the era of the Tabi'een. My brothers and sisters, don't be fooled by these certificates. Oh, he's a doctora. Subhanallah. al-Qura, degree, masters, PhD. What did Shaykh bin Baz say? He said to the Ministry of Interior Affairs, if Safar al-Hawali and Salman al-Awda do not repent and stop doing what they're doing, they should be prevented from durus. And their lectures should not be spread. And their books should not be spread. And they should not be allowed to give khutb. Should not be allowed to give lectures and sermons. So how is it possible? Because according to him, advertising sins is to make them permissible. And to advertise sins is kufr and ilhad in their eyes. Whereas the belief of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah is that these major sins are kufr, less than kufr. They do not exit a person from the fold of Islam. Even if they are done publicly. Even if a person drinks publicly, gambles publicly, stands outside the bank as you walk past and he says, my name is Muhammad, come and take riba from my bank. Still that does not make him a kafir. A man can kill 99 men. That would not make him a kafir. It would not make him a kafir. Because the major sins less than kufr, the major sins less than shirk that exits from the fold of Islam make a person a sinner, deficient in iman. He's a fasiq due to his sin. And he is a believer, albeit weak, due to his weak iman. He is deficient in iman. He is a Muslim under the will of Allah. We fear for him the wa'id of Allah, the threat of Allah's punishment, as we do for all of the sinners. So should we abandon, my brothers and sisters, studying the books of the sects? Should we abandon studying the books of Aqīdah that were written in the early centuries? Should we abandon the books of Ad-Darimi in his Rad al-Bishr al-Marisi? Should we abandon the books of Imam Ahmad or al-Lalaka'i or al-Ajuri or Ibn Khuzaymah or Ibn Manda? Because these books are old. Why do we need to bother with those books? Those ideas don't exist today. They exist and they are spread in many different languages. I've lost count how many languages the books of Sayyid Quṭb have been translated in. And likewise al-Mawdudi. And then you find their followers and those so-called enlightened ones, the rationalists, the so-called people of reason, the modern day Mu'tazila, the Aqlaniyun, the modernists and the liberals who wish to combine Western ideologies and philosophies and bring them and use the Quran and the Sunnah as a cover to introduce their bid'ah. Rather, we study the books of old so that we may save ourselves and our families and our communities from the innovations that were present then are present today. So alhamdulillah for the books of Aqīdah of the Salaf. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullahu khairan.